Tonight, Finance Ministry discovers 16 billion cedis slash fund by the Akufo-Addo administration as more details emerge about alleged misapplication of fund in tax refund account as government hands down responsible previous government officials.
The way and manner that account has been abused and raped over the last 8 years is very regrettable. We definitely have to look into it because this is against the PFM Act and it's against the Revenue Administration Act itself.
Plus, tonight, Finance Minister issues pause order on 194 billion cedis worth of contracts awarded under the previous administration.
I want to validate once again and to find out whether they have the authorization to commit government to that extent. And if they don't have authorization, we'll ask them to stop.
In the meantime, though, are you asking them to pause whilst you look?
Yes, we have already communicated that.
We have the latest tonight on Top Story. As always, Top Story is brought to you by Telecel, Connecting Energies and Holy Insecticide Spray and Call. Enjoy a holy sleep. My name is Faustina Safo. Tonight, fresh details are emerging about how the former government officials allegedly abused and misapplied more than 16 billion cedis in government tax refund account. Speaking exclusively to JoyNews, the Finance Minister, Dr. Akufo-Addo, described how the Akufo-Addo-led government allegedly used the account as a slush fund. The tax refund account is used to settle individuals and entities who overpay in meeting their tax obligation. Well, yesterday, the Finance Minister disclosed that out of the 29 billion cedis that accrued into that account, only 12 billion was used to refund taxes. The remaining 16 billion remains a subject of huge controversy. Tonight, well, on PM Express last night, the Finance Minister provided additional details on what the alleged misapplied funds were used for.
Going into the ministry, I recall that in 2016, on behalf of my former boss, the Honorable Seth, we sent a bill to Parliament called the Revenue Administration Act. And as part of that act, we had proposed to Parliament to impose 6% of all revenue to be set aside for the purposes of tax refund. 6%. And then we left office in 2016. And so 2017 to date, the 6% had accumulated in total 26 billion cedis. This 26 billion, I asked the GRA and the Ministry of Finance to give me a breakdown of how this taxes and tax refund account has been used. To my surprise, only, and I mean only 43% of the resources that accumulated into that account was used for the purposes that it was supposed to be used for. Like, because of the nature and structure of the VAT, for example, there are times that you overpay and then the tax authority will have to make sure that they refund you to encourage you to also pay your taxes. 43% was used largely for tax refund. And so largely less than 50% of the tax refund amount has been used for the purposes of tax refund. Then I came out to ask them a question. Can you tabulate for me year in, year out in the last 8 years how they have applied the 57%? To my surprise, once again, the money was largely misapplied and used for things that were not supposed to be used. And I said, this practice cannot continue. And so we are going to put a stop. And to put a stop, we said, okay, to start with, we'll take 2% of the 6% and bring it down to 4%. That 2% this year alone is giving me 3.8 billion cedis. The way and manner that account had been misused, we need to look into it. We definitely have to look into it, because this is against the PFM Act and it's against the Enabling Act, the Revenue Administration Act itself. And the way and manner that account has been abused and raped over the last 8 years is very regrettable.
It was 29.11 billion, out of which they've just used 43%. And I was in the calculations. You have 16.61 billion that was unaccounted for.
Exactly.
In essence, over 8 years.
Over 8 years.
You actually allege that it has been abused and the funds misapplied, as in the excess that was left in there. That's a serious accusation.
Oh, it's not serious accusation. I think it's gone past accusation. It's the fact. It's the fact. If you look at the Revenue Administration Act, it tells you what you have to use the tax refund account to. It gives you a clear indication and a clear guidelines and the way you should operate that account. Unfortunately, it has been used as a slush fund. Unfortunately, I don't want to go into the details as to how they use it because
once you say misapplied, then you must know what they used it for.
Oh no, I know exactly what they used the money for. They were using it to pay for contractors as and when they feel that a contractor must be paid from that account, and they were paying it.
Is somebody going to be held accountable for this?
It is not up to me to hold people accountable. It's up to the government agency, and the government agency is acting on this matter.
You have drawn the attention of the agency's
they know
consent
already.
to this.
They know already.
The 16.61 billion is what you're talking about.
It's quite a lot of money that has been misapplied.
The money, the excess, you didn't find it in the account.
It is not in the account. The account is empty.
The account is 29.11 billion.
It's empty as we speak.
Well, JoyNews is also learning tonight that the Finance Ministry has issued a pause order on 194 billion cedis worth of contracts awarded under the previous administration. While the Finance Minister disclosed on PM Express that the pause order will hold until a detailed audit of all pending government contracts is completed.
The problem we have is more than the rest.
Okay.
We have, again, contracts that has been awarded and active, about 194 billion Ghana cedis. Contracts. 194 billion Ghana cedis. Contract that has been awarded across the economy, that the Ministry of Finance, one way or the other, if they are to perform, will have to pay. But you see, the contract is what flows into the IPCs. Because when the person works, then the state will have to make allocation to pay. But if you don't have money, why do you award those contracts? 194 billion, almost $200 billion as cedis. 200 billion cedis. And that is different from the 67.5 billion Ghana cedis.
So you're not sure yet if those contracts have been executed or are being executed?
Yes, from the first job that we did, the feedback we had is that some of them are at site working, and some have also, some of them are suppliers, so they have to supply and they are in the process to supply. And so I've said that I want to validate once again and to find out whether they have the authorization to commit government to that extent. And if they don't have authorization, we'll ask them to stop. Because
in the meantime, though, are you asking them to pause whilst you look?
Yes, we have already communicated that.
They should pause whilst you look?
Because we need to find out as to whether they have authorization to commit that quantum, 194 billion Ghana cedis, and as to whether the budget can accommodate 194 billion. For example, if they are able to produce IPCs worth 100 billion cedis, can the budget accommodate it? The answer is certainly no, not accommodate it.
Well, tonight, the former Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, may be in more trouble as the Finance Ministry gathers evidence of breach of the Public Financial Management Act. Dr. Akufo-Addo says they have found evidence that suggests several contracts were awarded and executed over and above what was allocated by law, and in some cases where there was no funding available. He says the Attorney General will be furnished with the evidence.
The sanctions may not only be looking forward, it has to look at those who have infringed upon the PFM Act.
In the past?
In the past. So you have to look back and look forward so that, at the minimum, those in office today will also know that what has happened to the person who infringed upon the PFM Act may happen to you.
To be clear,
so the country will not go there.
This will apply to officers in the previous administration.
Of course, it's a PFM Act, and if the if the infractions were so severe to the extent that it has affected the economy of Ghana, and people are paying a huge price of it, then of course, the Attorney General must act on that. So
this is something that you are going to be looking into, or you have the Attorney General set up a team to probe and find out who has been violating this?
So first of all, we've begun a process to validate some claims at the Ministry of Finance. We inherited huge arrests and huge commitment. Arrests in excess of 67 billion Ghana cedis, this representing 5.2% of GDP. But it will surprise you to note that this 67.5 billion Ghana cedis, over 80% of this amount, the contract was awarded without commencement certificate.
So this is government contractors and suppliers.
Government contractors and suppliers. You see, and of this 67.5 billion cedis, we have 18 billion cedis plus sitting at the Controller and Accountant General, being payment that has been processed and waiting for payment, because the Minister of Finance then had signed and is sitting at the Controller and Accountant.
Why though? Why is it sitting there?
Well, it's sitting at the Controller and Accountant General because there's no cash to pay. There's no cash to pay.
So
and
whoever was signing
today, so they just signed it, but there was no cash available.
They didn't know at the time they were signing there was no cash.
Well, I will not be able to make that statement. But the truth is, they knew that they had exceeded their ceilings for the year, but they still processed. And 18.2 billion Ghana cedis is sitting at the Controller and Accountant General today, as I speak with you. Then we have another 49.2 billion Ghana cedis, also sitting at various MDAs, being work done, waiting for payment to the Controller and Accountant General, and obviously to Bank of Ghana for payment. So the two put together will give you 67.5 billion Ghana cedis, being outstanding claims that the government of Ghana had to pay. The first question is, do we have the money to pay that now?
So do we have the money?
Well, I don't think we have enough 67.5 billion to pay now, because these contracts were awarded without budget, two without allotment, and we do not have the space to accommodate them. We should provision for them. But before you make provision and before you start paying, the first thing you need to do is to validate it. In the budget, I've made provision for some 13 billion cedis to start paying down.
While you validate?
Even before I pay, I need to ensure that this amount is legitimate. And to assess the legitimacy of the amount, we will need to bring on board the Auditor General. So I've reached out to the Auditor General. I've asked him to commission an audit and validate the amount and advise before we can start paying.
And ultimately, you say that the Attorney General may have to get involved in prosecuting.
Because we need to. It is his decision to make that. I mean, it's.
But you pull the evidence before him if you find it.
The question is, we have to first of all identify the infractions. And if we identify the infractions, we have to submit that to the Attorney General for advice. It is for the Attorney General to make that.
Tonight on Top Story, we're fleshing out the implications to previous managers of the economy. And thankfully, I have with me Francis Timoboy. He is a tax lawyer. He joins me live. Thank you so much for your time. I want to start with the legal implications, really. We've been hearing from the finance minister just serve notice that the funds in this tax refund account were misapplied. More than 50% of the actual fund. Let's get some education. What are the potential penalties that individuals responsible could face?
So, firstly, if the allegations are true, as the minister is saying, then clearly that is a breach of the Revenue Administration Act. If you look at Section 69, it says that not more than 6% of the tax revenue collected in a year should be set aside as a reserve in the revenue, the Ghana Revenue General Refund account. And the purpose of that reserve account is to pay for refunds for persons who might have overpaid a tax. It is only when, at the end of the year, there's a credit standing in that account, then the law says that we should transfer it into the consolidated fund. And you know how money transferred into consolidated funds are, utilized. You need to go through the appropriation process. It has to be budgeted before you can withdraw money from the consolidated fund. From what the minister is saying, it looks as if we painted the picture like we have used it for, refund payment, but it wasn't for refund payment. Something that should have gone into the consolidated fund, we didn't allow it to go there, and then we touched it. So I think that is a breach of the act, and some can even stretch it to mean that you have used money in the consolidated fund that didn't go through the right appropriation and the process through Parliament. So it's quite worrying.
And the question really is that what steps can we take to ensure that we prevent future misapplication of funds in the tax refund account?
So the people in charge and here the Ministry of Finance should rather keep the eye on that account. You know, the law is very clear, and we are aware that many people, especially those who do export and the mining companies, who are genuinely entitled to refunds, but there are delays in refunding that amount to them. And well, some will say that it is administrative procedure, but if at the end of the day we are delaying people who are entitled to refund and we are not paying it to them just to more or less use the back door to get access to the money, which is supposed to even go through the consolidated fund, we go through Parliament in order to access the money in the consolidated fund. We just have to be careful that no refund is paid outside payment to taxpayers who have genuinely overpaid tax and they are entitled. The funny thing is that if they delay, sometimes there's no even interest paid on the tax that you have overpaid. We have the mining companies who are entitled, but if you delay, they don't get any interest on it. So just keep an eye on that refund account to the extent that any payment that comes out of it is actually for the payment of tax refund to taxpayers.
But at the heart of this really is public trust in the system. How do government restore public trust in its financial management practices following these revelations?
So I think one of the ways is to probably punish those who, breach some of these rules. Clearly, someone might have charged some money that is supposed to go through the consolidated fund for other purposes. The question is, why did we do that? Why didn't we go through the right process? So can that person be cited for breach of the the Financial Act? Yes, maybe. What are the consequences? Can we, exert the punishment on the persons who did that? Maybe something can be done. I'm aware. I mean, we all saw the special prosecutors charges against some public officials, and one of them was the misuse of the refund account. Let's see how he deals with it, if it is really a breach and there's some evidence to support that he has breached some of this thing. We need to build trust. People must believe that the delays in the release of the refund to people who genuinely are entitled to tax refunds is more not because we are using the money for something else, but we are going through the right processes to release the money to them.
Thank you. Stay with me. Let me bring in Kabiru Mahama. He's Member of Parliament and also a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. Thank you so much for your time. MP for Wale for joining us here on Top Story. I just want to get your initial reaction to this revelation by the Finance Minister. We've been hearing from a tax expert that as previous managers of the economy, you misapplied the funds in the tax refund account. And this amounts to a breach of key acts, the violation of the Revenue Administration Act and the Public Financial Management Act. What's your response to that?
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me, and good evening to you and your cherished listeners. The Finance Minister came to Parliament to present the budget. In the presentation, he mentioned that some 12 billion has been used appropriately, while some 16.6 billion has been or have been misapplied. The question then is how.
We seem to have lost Kabiru Mahama. He's MP for Wale. He's also a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, just giving us his thoughts about this revelation we're hearing tonight that the Finance Minister, Dr. Ofori-Atta Forson, revealed to us in that interview on PM Express last night, letting us know that more than half of the funds in the tax refund account has been misapplied. And we've been hearing from a tax expert tonight. He says that that is in clear violation of the Revenue Administration Act as well as the Public Financial Management Act. And we're trying to reconnect the lines to Kabiru Mahama just to get his thoughts. I'm told I have him now. Kabiru, please make your point.
Yeah, so I was saying that the Finance Minister comes to inform the
call has been put on hold. Please wait. 7%
of the funds that have been accumulated or accrued to the tax refund account have been, if you like, the 57% has been misapplied. Now, the question then is that 2 months in office, the finance minister has not been able to define the scope of misappropriation or misapplication of funds. We are left to decide how these funds have been used to be characterized as being misapplied. And I think this does not help. But
the end does not justify the means, really. The law is clear on what should be done when it comes to the money in that bank account. After you're done paying taxpayers, it ought to go to the consolidated fund. But then we're hearing from the finance minister says it was used as a slash fund. And I'm wondering why exactly that was done.
That it was used as a what?
Slash fund.
Slash fund. When you say fund, what does it mean by that?
Well, he was quite concerned. Well, in the basic term of it, a slash fund is an informal or secret pool of money and is used for unauthorized or questionable purposes. He said you use the money to pay contractors, which is not what the law actually says you should do.
That is true where we are left. The money is with GRA. The money with the GRA, GRA is the one collecting or putting this account into that sinking fund. Is it the control accountant general that is using the money to pay contractors? If you are suggesting that the finance minister stated that the money was used to pay contractors, you get the point I'm making. The finance minister has not provided parliament, neither has he provided anyone the use for that money, which he has characterized as misapplication. It is the use that we then look at and see whether or not those uses were actually misapplication of funds. We all know how this fund is supposed to use. Without the use, you transfer same to the consolidated account. Consolidated account is spent on appropriation, right? We know that, and we all know how this money is accrued and used. But if you come to inform the good people of Ghana that only 43% of the fund were used for the purpose of tax refund, but the remainder of 57 was misapplied. I mean, I will not contest that, but you have to provide me the very uses for which it was. Was it used to pay allowance of people? Was it used to pay? Let me know the details.
But the details really, does the detail really matter at this point? When the law is clear as to what exactly that money ought to be used for.
Now, what if the minister is lying? How do we know?
As we speak, the minister says that bank account is empty.
That's what if he's lying? How do we know?
Do you have evidence to prove he's lying?
If the fact that you don't have contra evidence, if I say that there was money in the account, what is the evidence to say that there was money? So
we had an interview with him yesterday on PM Express, and he revealed that that bank account is indeed empty.
Sarah, and I'm making the point that if you see the account was empty, this is the same government that told us that government did not leave any money, but we referred them to money that was left in the main T-bill account. They said we didn't leave any money, but we referred them to money that was left in the sinking account. They said we did not leave any money. I mean, the debt to GDP, they mentioned all sort of accusation. And I'm saying that we should not even be taking their words or against ours. Will they allow us to publish the account? The intention of it, you should have asked them that, can you publish the account for the Ghanaian people to know?
But why should we take your words, really? When we're hearing from someone who is privy to the records, I'm saying, I want some explanation. I want some explanation. I'm sure the people of Ghana, they're also looking forward to some explanation as to why exactly the money in this bank account, more than 50%, and we're talking about 16.6 billion Ghana cedis, nowhere to be found. The finance minister says it has been misapplied.
You don't have evidence to suggest that money has been misapplied. You are only taking the words of the finance minister.
Saying, do you have contrary evidence to prove the finance minister wrong?
Your duty is to go and find out the use and to come and question us. Why did you use it for A, B, C, D? It's not for you to take the word of the finance minister and then subjecting me to then prove that it was not misapplied. He said it was misapplied. What proof did he give you? You get the point. So that is the work you are supposed to do. You are supposed to go and check the account, ask him to publish the account, and then you can then come on and we discuss this matter.
I want to get an understanding. Are you denying? Are you denying indeed that money has been misapplied?
I am saying that the finance minister has informed the country without any proof. You have not provided any proof to the effect that his statement is true, and you are now then coming to ask me to confirm or deny that. When you can simply do your job by asking them.
What is truth to you? What is truth? Tell us. What is truth to you, based on the information available to you?
We are in the search for the truth. The good people of Ghana deserve to know how their funds are being used. We all agree that we need to find closure. I disapprove any misapplication of savings. And I will not be sitting here, not involved in the spending of money and defend anyone. But just like I will not also sit down here for people representation to be dragged in the mud. The truth of the matter cannot be established by me or the finance minister. It has to take independent mind to go check the account, whether there's money or not, ask them to publish it, and then ask for the better users.
I want you to stay with me, and I just want to play this sound to you. That way it gives you some sort of clarity. The initial...
Hello?
Yeah.
Going into the ministry, I recall that in 2016, on behalf of my former boss, JoyNews, we sent a bill to Parliament called the Revenue Administration Act. And as part of that act, we had proposed to Parliament to impose 6% of all revenue to be set aside for the purposes of tax refund. 6%. And then we left office in 2016. And so 2017 to date, the 6% had accumulated in total 26 billion cedis. This 26 billion, I asked the GRA and the Ministry of Finance to give me a breakdown of how this taxes and tax refund account has been used. To my surprise, only, and I mean only 43% of the resources that accumulated into that account was used for the purposes that it was supposed to be used for. Like, because of the nature and structure of the VAT, for example, there are times that you overpay, and then the tax authority will have to make sure that they refund you to encourage you to also pay your taxes. 43% was used largely for tax refund. And so largely less than 50% of the tax refund amount has been used for the purposes of tax refund. Then I came out to ask them a question. Can you tabulate for me, year in, year out, in the last 8 years, how they have applied the 57%? To my surprise, once again, the money was largely misapplied and used for things that were not supposed to be used. And I said, this practice cannot continue. And so we are going to put a stop. And to put a stop, we said, okay, to start with, we'll take 2% of the 6% and bring it down to 4%. That 2% this year alone is giving me 3.8 billion cedis. The way and manner that account had been misused, we need to look into it. We definitely have to look into it, because this is against the PFM Act and it's against the Enabling Act, the Revenue Administration Act itself. And the way and manner that account has been abused and raped over the last 8 years is very regrettable.
It was 29.11 billion, out of which they've just used 43%. And I was in the calculations. You have 16.61 billion that was unaccounted for.
Exactly.
In essence, over 8 years.
Over 8 years.
You actually allege that it has been abused and the funds misapplied, as in the excess that was left in there. That's a serious accusation.
Oh, it's not serious accusation. I think it's gone past accusation. It's the fact. It's the fact. If you look at the Revenue Administration Act, it tells you what you have to use the tax refund account to. I mean, it gives you a clear indication and a clear guidelines and the way you should operate that account. Unfortunately, it has been used as a slush fund. Unfortunately, I don't want to go into the details as to how they use it, because
once you say misapplied, then you must know what they used it for.
Oh no, I know exactly what they used the money for. They were using it to pay for contractors, as and when they feel that a contractor must be paid from that account, and they were paying it.
Is somebody going to be held accountable for this?
It is not up to me to hold people accountable.
Kabiru, I'm sure you've heard the finance minister. He was clear there when he said you misapplied the funds. He said you used the money to pay contractors, and that's against the law. You ought to have put the money in the consolidated fund. The reason why I wanted you to listen to him, please make that point again. What's the stance that you're making?
Tax refund account, central government has no visibility to it. It is the GRA that has visibility to that account, and GRA does tax refund. So how come central government will use it to pay contractors? I mean, some of these explanations, when people give them, you follow up with relevant questions. Central government does not have the authority to issue checks on that account. It's managed by the GRA. How does the GRA use it to pay contractors?
And so your point is really?
Yeah, ma'am, the point is for Ghanaians to know that if you are saying tax refund account...
Are you saying that the finance minister lied to Ghanaians? Is that what you're saying?
I said the mathematics of it doesn't even make sense. You tell Ghanaians that you are going to reduce it by 4%, as if to say that the money is lying down somewhere waiting for you. It's a factor of the availability of taxable income and whether or not non-oil tax revenue would even come. If your revenue performs badly, the tax refund component will also perform badly. But you come to tell Ghanaians as if this is money lying down, you are going to reduce it and the money will come. That does not even make sense to start with. But that is not even what we are discussing. Today, you are calling us to discuss whether or not the money really accrued and whether or not it was misapplied. All right. So we would, in the course of time, even discuss the logic of that particular statement he mentioned on the floor of Parliament, as if to say that all the time non-tax revenue will perform. So I'll get all the time the 3 billion. That is the analysis the finance minister came to make to the good of Ghana, but that is even flawed. That said, if you say that account was supposed to be held by the GRA, and you ask the GRA, and the GRA is using to pay contract, GRA does not award central government contract. The central government contract is awarded by MMDAs. How could they have visibility to use it to pay contractors? So it doesn't make sense. And that explanation, I even feel that he reluctantly gave you that explanation after when Evans pushed him to give him the reason. And he can just say contractors, for what work? Central government does not get itself involved in that account.
Kabiru Mahama, he's MP for Wali Wali, and earlier we spoke to Francis Boy, he's a tax lawyer. And that's how we wrap up Top Story tonight. We leave these ideas in the minds of Ghanaians as they judge. My name is Faustina Safo. Up next is Just Night.
And more from the